This tutorial is going to demonstrate how to create this keychain using Autodesk Inventor. We're going to use the sweep tool to create the large portion of this, and then the small connector piece right here, we're going to use the Loft tool, just as it says here on the drawing. I have some dimensions here. This is a 0.075 inches tall and 0.055 inches wide. And you can see the profile here. And this is the path. And for every sweep, we need a path and a profile. So I'm going to start with the profile, or excuse me, the path. I usually start that way. It's just habit. It's not right or wrong. And this is not quite a circle. This is just a nearly complete arc. And there is, if you read here, 12 degrees from full 360. So here's my two endpoints. And I always like putting one endpoint of my path on the origin. It just makes life easy when I can use existing origin planes instead of creating my own work plane. Now, what do I know here? I know the distance between, or the angle between these points is 12 degrees. I know the diameter of this arc is a radius of 0.5. Now here's a funny thing. If you do this as a circle, it's going to give you a diameter. If you do this as an arc, it's going to give you a radius. Just be aware of that. If you choose to start with a circle and then cut out a portion, that you need to be apples to apples and make that either a radius dimension or make your diameter appropriate. Okay, what's the last thing I'm missing? Well, my guess is I can still move this center point around. So what I'm going to do, real simply, is I'm just going to use a constraint to lock this guy in. I'm just going to tell it to be vertical from the origin. That sketch is done. My path is done. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the origin plane that is perpendicular to the endpoint of this path, which is going to be this guy right here. And I'm going to sketch this on it. Now, we want to make sure we orient this correctly to get the proper shape here. If I look at this from the side, that's how this is going to look over here. Because if you look at a keychain, you'll understand why that is so. All right, so what do I have here? I've got two arcs, two kind of chubby little arcs. I'm going to use, after I create the arcs, I'm going to use some construction lines. I've found that construction lines can be used to do lots of things and make things very, very simple that would otherwise be complex or create a need for lots of dimensions. Okay. So I know that the width of this is 0.055. And I know that the height, and there's one nice thing about using construction lines, is I can just reference the line itself, is 0.075 inches. Now, they're supposed to be equal, so let's see if an equal will fix that. Oh, let's get out a dimension tool. Let's use an equal on these arcs and see what happens. It looks good, but you can see my center line's moved. That should be an easy fix. I can just take this line and put it on my origin. That's another nice thing about starting at the origin. Okay, let's see. What am I missing? Oh, it's rotating on me. Well, if I know this needs to be flat on the horizon, that should fix that. And you can look down the bottom right, and this is fully constrained, so we're good to go there. Now remember, if you did not use an origin plane, you need to import this endpoint. There has to be a point shared between these two different sketches. And how do you do that? Well, in the second sketch, you can't do it with the first one. In the second sketch, which I need to reopen here, you can use the project tool and take that point from the first sketch. If you use the origin like I did, you don't have to do that. The origin exists in all planes unless you go and delete it or something. But if you did not use an origin plane, then that is a crucial step. All right, let's go ahead and sweep this guy. And look at that. I didn't even have to click anything. It figured it out. It's nice when the computer does the work for me sometimes. All right, the preview looks good. If the preview does not show you what the feature is going to look like, then that means there's a problem. And most often that problem is you're not sharing that point between two sketches. We're going to let that go. Now for the second step, we're going to use the loft. And we're going to do something that's kind of simple here. I'm going to sketch on this end. And the only thing I'm going to do here is import or project the geometry, which you can see is shown in yellow lines. And then I'm going to cut it in half with a line. That is literally all I'm doing on both sides. Let's project this one, another line. All right, that's it. Finish that sketch, and now we can do a loft. So a loft is similar to a sweep, but it's a little different in that it takes the shape of one sketch and merges it with another rather than having a path. Although when you get better with lofts, that does work too. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is sections. I'm going to click my sketch, and then I'm going to tell it which part of that sketch I want, which the right side is going to be the top. And I'm going to go to my sketch number 4 and click that. Sometimes you got to go back in the menu and click it again. And then I'm going to tell it which side I want this to loft. Now, hopefully this works. There we go. Worked perfect. And as you can see, it kind of smooths itself out. Later on down the road, we'll be using the loft with center lines and guidelines, but right now this is just a very, very small introduction to it. So there is your keychain. Nice and easy. And that looks exactly like this guy over here, so mission successful.